I first read about UFOs in Adamski's books. Um, Saucers Have Landed was a book in which he wrote the last chapter. And the last chapter was about his experience of meeting a Venusian, as he made known, in the Arizona desert. And the book itself was not by Adamski. The rest of the book was by two Englishmen, or no, one Englishman, I think, one Englishman. And it was the history of flying saucers over many ages, for long periods, different parts of the world. So it was research, historical, speculative to some degree, and it finished with Adamski's actual experience. That was one thing. That was the first thing I read. The next thing I read was Inside the Spaceships by Adamski, a sequel to that last chapter of the previous book, in which he was taken up in a spaceship, a saucer, and onto what we called a mothership. This mothership was a Venusian ship, and he had long conversations with the Venusian master, who I can't remember exactly, but I think was the master of the ship, the chief person on board the ship. But in any case, he was a Venusian master. And these were very interesting conversations. And so for me, the UFO phenomenon was more to do with the purpose, the meaning behind the flying saucers, as they were called, than the how shall I say, the phenomenon itself, the technology itself, the fact that people from other planets, some people think other solar systems, I believe other planets, were concerned enough to visit this planet was interesting, but the nature of the concern was much more interesting. Their concern was that we should not destroy ourselves, that we should change our way of life, our way of organizing our world to A, not destroy the world from an ecological point of view, and two, not to destroy each other in some war using nuclear weapons and so on. It was a philosophical, spiritual discourse which he had with the Venusian master. And that's what really impressed me about the book. But above that, I was not particularly interested in flying saucers. When I first heard about UFOs, it was at about 1940, don't know, 47, 48, that kind of, maybe 45, when few reports came on our newspapers that there would be a plane, a passenger plane, commercial plane flying, and they would come into contact with or close to what we now call UFOs. And the pilot would report it, the people in the plane would look and see it happening, and they would see these round, disc-shaped objects, sometimes quite close to the aircraft, flying alongside the aircraft, either one or many, and these were reported. And it was a happening which happened quite frequently, but it was not every day, or rather you didn't hear about it every day. These reports were, spaced out over a period of time. I believe that these were, in the first time I heard these, before I read the Adamski books, the first time I heard or read anything about them, I believed that they were probably either American or Russian special planes that they were experimenting with, which were built on an entirely different system, didn't use wings, you know, like they weren't built like ordinary airplanes. They were round, they were saucer-shaped, and so we call them flying saucers. And I thought at first, as I say, that there were secret planes, flying objects of Russia or America, or both. Until I read the Adamski book, and then it became clear that there was something else going on, that they were perhaps from elsewhere. And then I was contacted by one of the masters of our spiritual hierarchy, and my work began in January 1959. I've talked about it and written about it in other ways. And the work was really, in the beginning, with the space people, with the people using the UFOs, unidentified flying objects. To me, they became very identified. The fact of having read Adamski left me very open to the possibility, although I didn't think very much about it. But I was immediately introduced to the flying phenomena, and I was a part of a group, of which Adamski was one, which met only out of the body. We didn't meet as we are meeting now, you know, in the ordinary way, but we worked to the outer world secretly, but to ourselves it was the secret. We recognized each other, and we were part of a committee, and we did certain work which was assigned to us, and that was all to do with the UFO phenomenon. And in my experience, what we call UFOs, the flying saucers, come from the planets of our own system, not from Pleiades or Sirius or somewhere outside our solar system, but from mainly Mars and Venus. A few other planets like Jupiter, Mercury are involved, but the vast majority of sightings of the UFOs come from Mars and Venus, and practically all of them are made on Mars. Even the Venusian ones are made on Mars. They're of Venusian design, and they're quite distinct, different in design and different technology, but they're actually constructed on Mars. And they're all constructed by thought. The physical people, the people in physical bodies on Mars and Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and so on, are not at the same level of physicality as that we think of. We only know three aspects of the physical. That's solid physical, liquid physical, and gaseous physical. But above gas, there are still four further levels of physical matter which so far have not been discovered on this planet. And when they are, we will understand a great deal more about the nature of disease, the origin of disease, the nature of our life on this planet, and of the reality of life on other planets. The beings on Mars and Venus and the other planets are on the four higher levels of the physical. So that if you went to Mars or Venus, you would see nobody, but nevertheless, they are in the still physical matter and have bodies made of that subtle, finer physical matter, to which we give the term etheric. We ourselves have bodies made of these four, the three physical, dense physical, liquid physical, gaseous physical, and the four etheric physical planes. But we have not yet discovered the four etheric planes. They have been discovered by the great scientist. He was a a psychologist to begin with. He was a friend and colleague and assistant of Freud. His name is Wilhelm Reich, who died in an American prison, I think in 1957. He was arrested for purporting to treat diseases with instruments in which he claimed the instruments gathered together, attracted to it, matter which from the etheric planes, which he called orgone, O-R-G-O-N-E, orgone energy. He saw it as one plane, one vast plane of orgone energy, which he saw rightly as being everywhere in the universe, substanding the outer physical, solid physical plane. He didn't see it as, in fact, they are known to esotericists as four planes getting finer and finer as they go higher. So the fourth etheric is just above gas, and to all intents and purposes to us is invisible unless you have etheric vision, then they become visible. But without etheric vision, they are non-existent, and we have not yet discovered them. But nevertheless, the effect of those energy, of this etheric energy, of what he called organ energy, was demonstrated palpably by Wilhelm Reich. But he was arrested because he used instruments, which he called the orgone accumulator, boxes which accumulated this etheric energy, or some levels, usually the two lower levels of the etheric energy, the fourth and the third etheric, to treat various diseases, including cancer and various other diseases. In America, it was deemed illegal. The Food and Drugs Administration in America arrested him, and he died in prison. Anyway, unless one understands that the reality of the etheric levels of energy, these finer, subtler levels of matter, you cannot begin to understand the UFO phenomenon, and you cannot understand the creation of crop circles, because they're all related. The crop circles are created by the people mainly from Mars and Venus, with a few other exceptions from other planets. But the vast majority of them are Martian and some Venusians. And they are all over the world. They are mainly in the south of England, in this country, but they have been seen, discovered in America and Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, and all over the world to a greater or lesser degree. And what they are doing is replicating the magnetic field which surrounds every planet. Our planet, like all planets, have a magnetic field. It is made of energy, magnetic energy, which goes in lines and crisscrosses, and where these lines cross, eventually is formed a vortice, a kind of chakra, a force center. And what the space people, mainly from Mars and Venus, as I say, are doing with the crop circles is replicating on the physical, the dense physical plane, as seen in the crop circles, these magnetic vortices in our planetary magnetic field. And so there's the planetary magnetic field on its own level, and then a physical plane counterpart of that, which is being replicated by the people, the mainly Mars and Venusian people, who are manning the UFOs who are creating the crop circles. They do this in order to make the foundation on the physical plane of a new type of energy, a new type of technology using that energy, which eventually will be developed on this planet. It is a gift from this coming time, the new age which we're entering, which we call the age of Aquarius, is a time in which tremendous new discoveries in the use of the energy of the planet and of the sun will be found and adapted and used with a technology to fit it, which will entirely change our way of life on this planet and will lead to a control of universal energy such as we can't begin to imagine. In the next, 2,000 years, 2,500 years, we will reach a stage where we can travel around our solar system at will and out into the galaxy. How far we can go, I don't know at this time, but in time out into the galaxy, exploring first our own solar system and then the galactic area, which is vast, and using energy which does not work within the time-space reality, so that distance is annihilated, time is annihilated. And people think, well, if you're going to send something into the galaxy, it will take hundreds of years. The people would die before they could reach anywhere that was worth going to, and they could never return, and so on. It's not true. The people come from Mars and Venus, which are not, so far away, but they are still a long way away by our reckoning of distance, but they come here in minutes. It doesn't take time. Once you understand that time does not exist, and that the space which it is thought you have to cover to get from one place to another does not exist either, and that in a matter of minutes you can travel vast distances in space. Crop circles are used because it is it's part of our seasonal. It's a seasonal thing. You only have crops for a short time in the summer and autumn, and then they're cut down, and you don't see the crop circles. Then you come to grow up again next year, and the crop circles appear in the same places, because they are recreated each time in the exact same point, so that the energy is put in that field or whatever. But these crop circles, if they were put where the energy is put, would be all over the world, including in the sea, including on mountains and in rock and so on, where you have nothing growing. But they're put in, allowed to be seen, made actually as a design, a crop circle design in corn, because it is seasonal. It's cut down, it's a tangential way, without infringing our free will, to tell the people of Earth that we are here, that the space brothers, as I call them, the people from the other planets like Mars and Venus and so on, are here. They're part of a system, and they work in a systemic way and not just as separate planets. And they're helping this planet to develop the technology of the future, and also to make known, without being too strong about it, to make known that they are here, they're aware of us, they're helping us, and they have a very spiritual intention in coming here, and that they are 100% friendly and harmless. There are, of course, some hoaxes. These hoaxes are a tiny minority of the real crop circles, the authentic crop circles which appear all over the world. The percentage of hoaxes to authentic ones vary from country to country. In this country, because we have so many and for so long have had so many crop circles, are probably in a bigger percentage than elsewhere. If you have more crop circles, you have more hoaxes. And in other parts of the world, there perhaps is not such a conscious involvement of people with the crop circles, so they don't take the trouble to make them. It's a lot of work to make a crop circle. It's hard work, and they are usually very obvious and very clumsy and badly made. And how anyone can mistake one a hoax for a real crop circle if they visit the actual crop circle astonishes me, because they are so perfectly made when they are authentic. They are made in seconds by the people in using the what we would call UFO, where first of all they make a design. They think of a design. The design is known beforehand. They decide what the design will be. It may be very simple, and if you follow the sequence of crop circles, you see they become more and more elaborate, more complex as the years go on. One, for variety, and two, to show a complexity and a degree of ingenuity in design which would be beyond the range of any hoaxer. And the hoaxes are usually very elementary, rather badly made, and why they're made, I would say, for two reasons. One reason is they're made by people who are paid to do it, to make hoaxes. Newspapers, for example, do from time to time put up money to and employ maybe a group of university students who have worked out a way in which you can make a crop circle of a kind, a rather simplistic kind, but that would convince a journalist that that was an authentic crop circle. Journalists know no more about crop circles than anybody else, than the average man in the street. And yet they come along with their cameras and they look at it and they say, yes, this is a crop circle, a real authentic crop circle, how wonderful. And then Jeff and Pete or Willie and Robert come up and say, no, we made it. Yesterday we made it. And the Daily Mail or the Daily Sun paid us £2,000 to make this crop circle. We can prove it. This is a complete hoax. They're all hoaxes. It's a way of diminishing the value and the reality of the crop circles. Also, I know for certain that the Air Ministry in London, the Defence Ministry in this country, pay money to the farmers to cut down the crop circles if they appear in their corn. And some of them go ahead and as soon as it appears, they cut it down, even if the corn is not ripe, and they wouldn't necessarily cut down that area of corn for maybe a few weeks or a month or so. And you get fields with a great big hole in the middle of the field, which is where there has been a crop circle, which has been deliberately destroyed by the farmer paid by the Defence Ministry. It's very difficult for people who have not studied the subject, who are not to some degree, I don't say expert, but very well acquainted with the subject, to tell the difference between a true, authentic crop circle made by some ship from Mars or Venus, usually Mars, and one that is just a concoction, a fake one by a group of people. But if you have been looking at them over a period of time and realize the differences, you can see instantly that this is a fake and this is authentic, and they're very clear cut. There is I saw recently in a newspaper a photograph of one in the south of England which has a circle in which the space is divided into squares, both running both ways like this. It makes a kind of like a cake, you know, but decorated in squares, and near it a head, a kind of alien, imaginary alien's head, is a head which is used every time a comic artist wants to design a spaceman. He gives him that kind of a head, you know. It's from E.T., rather like the head of E.T. And that, to me, is a complete fake. It has nothing to do with the crop circle beside it, which is an authentic one. And it's done for one or other of these reasons, simply that people like to play pranks. They like to destroy evidence. They like to be cleverer than the people who are making the crop circles, until the public and the media cannot make head or tail of the whole thing. They don't know, and it destroys the validity of the whole crop circle phenomenon. If you can't tell the difference between a fake one and a real one, an authentic one, then the authentic ones lose validity. Not ultimately, but for the present time, until it is proved that there are authentic crop circles, and by vast difference in majority over the number of fakes. The number of fakes is really relatively very small, because they're hard to do, they're difficult to do, they take time and energy, and people who are going to spend that time and energy to do it either have a great overdeveloped sense of humour, as they see it, it's a great joke, or else they're being paid to do it. Both things happen. In the one I saw in the newspaper, the actual pattern of the circle is a genuine one, and the head of a space, you know, ET, which is near it, is not true. It is a man-made one to nullify the validity of the other. The numbers of crop circles is increasing all over the world. They've always been there, but only in small numbers. They're increasing because the plan of the Space Brothers in relation to the spiritual hierarchy of our planet is to speed up the creation of this magnetic field energy on the physical plane on the Earth to do with the coming technology. Why now? Because the whole process is speeding up. Because our own spiritual hierarchy, the masters and high initiates of the spiritual hierarchy of this planet are returning to the everyday world. They've not been out of the world, but they've been hidden away in the mountains and deserts of the world for thousands and thousands of years. So they've been working behind the scenes. But they are externalizing their work and are beginning to appear. Already, to my knowledge, there are 15 masters living openly as men in the world, and the master of all the masters, the world teacher, the Lord Maitreya, as he's named in the spiritual hierarchy, the one Christians call the Christ. All the hierarchies of all the planets are in communication. This is something which people should understand, will eventually understand. They themselves do not have communication, but hierarchy does. The hierarchy is made up of masters of different levels and of disciples of even greater different levels, even more varied levels. And all these disciples, all these different grades of initiates may be part of some of them may be part of groups who have been working between the planets with the Space Brothers, as we call them. And the Space Brothers have on this planet various people like Adamski and others who are used to bring the reality of the Space Brothers to the world, but also for other reasons which I cannot go into. There are various aspects of this work which must be kept secret for the time being at least, and so I have to respect that. But they work with people in the world in various different ways. They have a great work in salvaging and helping to restore equilibrium and hold the equilibrium of our planet, in particular to nullify to some extent within the karmic law the pollution of our planet. But for their work on purifying our atmosphere, for instance, mopping up and using implosion devices which nullify the nuclear radiation which we pour into the atmosphere from our nuclear reactors and nuclear experimentation all over the world. But for their work, this world would be, if not unlivable in, it would be infinitely more painful to live in this world. But within the karmic law, they use instruments, and this is a great work of the UFOs to mop up, as I say, to nullify the effects of not only nuclear radiation, but of various gases and poisonous gases which we pour into the atmosphere. Mr. Greer's doing a useful thing. He is not working, so far as I know, with the Space Brothers, but he is impatient with the fact that there are a mass of evidence to prove that UFOs exist. Not necessarily to prove where they come from, what is their purpose, but that they, as objects in space, exist. that have been seen by hundreds of thousands of people for years and years and years. And yet the governments of the world, all of whom have complete data on their existence, refuse to make that known. There is a huge cover-up from the highest levels in America, Russia, England, all the European countries and various other countries in the world, who have been collecting data, evidence from their pilots, from policemen, from soldiers, from the public, for years and years and years, adding up to a huge amount of evidence, which is never published, is never made known, never accepted as evidence, and is fragmented, is covered up. People disappear even in certain parts of the world, and nothing more is heard from them. There is sometimes very heavy coverage, other times it's used very simple by the media to discredit the evidence and so on. In this way, the governments control what the public knows, or rather doesn't know, about the Space Brothers phenomenon and the UFO phenomena. And in this way, they can keep it down. Mr. Greer is impatient with this. He has himself experience of UFOs and wanted to make it known. And he has set up a means of other people, ex-Army, ex-RAF, or ex-United States Air Force personnel have come forward and given their evidence. And when people of their standing and experience give evidence in this public way, they hope it will lead to a general better understanding and maybe eventually an open statement by the governments of the world. But when the governments of the world make such a statement about their knowledge, they're also at the same time committing suicide, because if we know the technology, and this is their thinking, if we know the technology that the Space Brothers have and use, which is so much more advanced than our own, then the minds, the thoughts, the ideas, the wisdom of those people, if it's possible to be at our service, is much more to be valued than that of our own governments, who do nothing but make war on each other, who in competition destroy the economies of each other and so on, who make life miserable for hundreds of millions of people throughout the world. Inevitably, we will say, we want the Space Brothers to come and teach us their ways. We don't need you, Mr. So-and-so, or Mr. So-and-so. And they can see that as a loss of their power. And so they keep the whole thing dark. The government will only do it when they're forced to do it. And when Maitreya is known openly, Maitreya is the world teacher, the head of our own planetary hierarchy, who are beginning to return to the everyday world. When they are known, Maitreya is known, he will be asked questions like I'm being asked now, and the truth of the relationship between this country, this planet, and the other planets will become known, and then the people from other planets will land, and the reality of their existence will be known. But we have to understand that these ships and the people in these ships are really in etheric matter, which is matter, but subtler than our physical etheric matter. And we have this subtle matter as part of our etheric framework, of which the physical is only a precipitation downwards. But we don't see it, so for us it's non-existent. But the Space Brothers can lower the vibrational rate of that matter, etheric matter, until it comes within our range of vision, so that we see the spaceships. But it's a temporary manifestation. When the Space Brothers live, and some do live on the Earth, they have to make or take Earth bodies to do so. But in the first place, the knowledge, the acceptance of the reality of the Space Brothers will come through the acceptance of Maitreya and the masters of our spiritual hierarchy. They will confirm that the Space Brothers are real, that the spaceships are real, that the other planets have their citizens who have nothing but goodwill, who are harmless, who want to help each other and do help each other and help this planet insofar as the law of karma allows. And when we accept them and see what they're doing and how they're helping us, then the development, the technological development of this planet will go forward and tremendously fast. This question of abductions and cattle mutilations are part of the general cover-up. They're a way of invalidating the reality of the Space Brothers, and that is a way of making people afraid of the Space Brothers. The Space Brothers know nothing of harm and have no harm for this planet. If they had, they could have destroyed this planet long ago. Nobody is ever abducted in a spaceship. These cattle mutilations are deliberately made as cover-ups to put the blame on the Space Brothers and therefore to make people afraid of the Space Brothers. And the whole thing is a plot against this enormously important and enormously serious interchange between the planets to keep power for a limited number of people on this planet. And it will be, as I say, only for another limited time until the hierarchy of masters are known and accepted, Maitreya is known and accepted, then the reality of the UFOs will come out. Nobody is ever abducted. Those who say they're abducted have experiences of an emotional astral nature in which they imagine that they are in spaceships. Nobody is ever taken up in a spaceship in their physical body. It's impossible. These spaceships are not solid physical. To be taken up in a spaceship, you have to be taken out of the physical body and you go in the etheric into the spaceship, which are in themselves etheric. It's still physical, but etheric physical. Now, people say they're taken up and experimented on, the things are put into the skin and so on. The Space Brothers know all about us. They don't need to do this. To me, it's a nonsense because they are so advanced in every way that we could imagine they would need to be to make any kind of experiments, that they don't need to make the experiments. They know the answers before they have to look for them. Do you understand what I mean? It's a complete nonsense that they should carry out genetic experimentation or sexual experimentation on people from this planet when they have a technology which is maybe several thousand years ahead of anything that we can think of today. It's stupid, but it's a blind, it's a deliberate way of attacking the concept of wise and superior and spiritually oriented space people, which is the fact. In that way, the people in control in the governments of the world, or even behind the governments of the world, retain their control. The crop circles are made by energy. The people in the spaceship design a design in their mind, simple or complex, and then with a combination of technology and thought, that design is imprinted on in the crop, and you see it then. They always use a universal system based on 9 rather than on 10, and we will adopt that in the future. When we understand the nature of the mathematical ratios in the true sense, we will begin to understand the crop circles better. Many people think the crop circles are ideograms, which they're not. They're not giving us ideas. They're not encapsulating ideas. They are simply designs carried out to a certain formula, and the formula is universal. And that's what they're reiterating over and over again in these designs. In every case, there is an energy which is embedded in the ground, in the water, wherever it is done. It's not. You must think that. Come to understand that the crop circles are only visible, external visible points where these vortices occur, but these vortices occur all over the world where there is no crops. That's so that there are thousands and thousands of these energy spots created, vortices created by the Space Brothers when they make a circle. They make it in crops, you see it. They make it in the ocean, you don't see it, but it's still there. In this way, they are forming a grid, a magnetic grid, which will be a source of energy on the physical plane, like storage tanks of energy, so that we're drawing energy from our own magnetic plane, but using it on the physical plane in the technology which is coming. And using energy from the sun in relation to this magnetic energy, we will do wonders in healing and many other ways in transport, and all our energy needs will be met. And if you go to a crop circle and you're sensitive to the energy, you will find if you're on a one made by a Venusian spaceship, it will be Venusian energy, which is quite different, quite distinct from that in a crop circle made by a Martian spaceship, and that's Martian energy. And if it's made by Mercurian or Jupiterian, it will be likewise different again. These energies are different, they're distinct, and they have a healing quality. People going into and spending a little time in a corn circle do feel the energy, and they are often of a healing nature and do heal. I would not recommend that they spend a lot of time in this space, otherwise they can be overcharged by the energy in the thing, especially Venusian energy, very, very high in vibration. And So I recommend care in going into a crop circle, and spend maybe 5-10 minutes in it, but not sitting there for a couple of hours and talking with people, and so, which people do, and then they wonder why they're so overcharged. You know. All the space vehicles have listening devices, which may be 2.5 feet in diameter, like that. And they can be directed from the spaceship itself, which might be, if it's the usual scout ship, is about 30 feet in diameter. And these are sent down and are connected energetically with the mothership, and they have instruments can read the reports. These are fed into very advanced computers. I mean, our computers are ancient, backward things compared with the technology they have, and these pick up data on everything: the quality of the air, the thoughts and ideas of individuals if necessary. They may hover outside a room here and listen to this conversation, for example, and they can follow an aircraft. They cannot be shot down. There's a force field around them, and the spaceships cannot be shot down. They have a force field around them. They've often been fired at by fighter planes sent up to intercept them and so on, and they fire some rounds at them, but there's no way the rounds can penetrate the force field around the ship, so it's a waste of time and energy and bullets. But you know, that's just Earth stupidity. We're a very stupid planet, the ordinary people of this planet. We're a backward, dark planet who know nothing, believe nothing, see nothing, understand nothing. But that is all going to change, because the hierarchy of masters are coming back into the world. Some are already here, including the master of all the masters, Maitreya himself, who will be the first to become known. And his mission will begin in the very near future. And this will throw a complete new light on the reality of life. These Foo Fighters do the job. I can't tell you what the job is in every single case. It will vary from time to time. The space ships have implosion devices, which are usually red as a red light which they give off, which are used to nullify, neutralize nuclear radiation in the Earth. And they do this. They don't explode, they implode, and they use different devices for different things. But they have this, what they call the Foo Fighters, are simply carrying information, and they send this information back. I've seen them. I mean, I've ducked as this comes so close like this, and they don't mean any harm. It's only a kind of hello, you know. So. All I can say is the video is real. These lights which were seen, I think there were 5 lights, which were seen, were deliberately shown. The crop circle was made from the spaceship in seconds, just like that. And then these lights were put out to show that they were there, that to draw attention to the fact that they had made the crop circle, to connect it with the UFO, and so make it real, that it wasn't a mystery. Because if you just have a crop circle and you're sitting there waiting for the appearance of a craft to make a crop circle, and you don't see the craft, and then there's a crop circle, you've got no feedback on it, you understand? So when you have lights, they don't know whether the lights made it or the UFO made the crop circle, but there is a connection between it because no one has ever explained away the lights, you understand, which hovered over the ground. So I don't know where the criticism is valid. It may be from a technical point of view, but it cannot be from the actual factual point of view, because it happened. Well, it's not the way I would put that. I wouldn't say without Maitreya we won't see it. With Maitreya we will see it. The fact that Maitreya is in the world, I know for absolute certainty that Maitreya is in the world, living here in London where I'm talking now, and not so very far from here. I saw him only last Monday, and he is making his presence known in the world very soon indeed. He will begin his open mission very soon indeed. And the world will gradually come to understand who he is and what his mission is. And when they accept him, they will then, of course, accept what he says about the Space Brothers and the UFOs, and then they will be accepted. And then there'll be an interchange between the two.